This is the SONICast, where artists discuss their passion for creating music. We discuss everything about music creation, from the tech needed for success to music education. So if you love making beats, film scoring, or creating sample packs, this is the show for you, where you'll regularly hear from experts in their field discuss their experiences and learn what makes them highly sought-after professionals. Today's guest is Daniel Lara. Daniel is the co-founder of Sonic Productions and one of the lead music track creators for the team. He has an extensive music and teaching educational background, as well as a lifelong history playing in churches, leading bands, and much, much more. He has music tracks placed with television and radio advertisers. The interview takes place at his studio. All right, back again with Daniel Lara. Again, thanks for being here with me on this.
Thanks for having me.
We had a really good first session, getting a chance to know about your background and upbringing. And so I want to take some time for this session to get to know your influences musically, and maybe even otherwise, but your musical influences, your creative process, how you create tracks, the type of equipment that you normally use, stuff like that. It's kind of the road I think we should go through. But as far as musical influences that you listen to now, who are the big ones that you find yourself gravitating to, influential wise?
For what purpose? Are you talking about like the production? Are you talking more just as a musician, or as
Let's first start with just for maybe recreation.
Okay, recreation.
You just enjoy listening to it at this point.
So guilty pleasures.
Guilty pleasures. What are the things that you don't want people to know on your iPod? iPod. What's on your iPod, Daniel?
Your Spotify nowadays.
What's in your Spotify?
Come on.
What's in your iPhone?
What's on my iPod? I'm looking at two old iPods that I have up there. I have that old U2 iPod. Remember that one?
Yeah, that's right.
One of the first.
The brick.
It was the brick one. Yeah, it was
that.
black and red.
Yeah.
And then I have one of the more modern ones that were like, I think it had 160 gigs of space for music. And I thought,
which is
man,
amazing.
I would never feel that one.
That's so much space.
Yeah,
You're
so
like,
much space.
how can I have so much music?
Yeah.
What would you ever need it for?
Then again, my first iBook, I think it was called an iBook, right? The laptop, Apple laptop was
MacBook.
Was it MacBook?
I think so.
But that was it was 10 gigs. Wow. 10 gigs.
So
Can you imagine that? There was so much space when I bought that. I remember buying that for $2,000.
Wow, now that's
and
about
I still have it. It turns on.
It still works.
It still works. Yeah.
What year was that one?
Slow. That was back in 2002 that I bought that.
Oh man.
$2,000, man. $2,000. It was
now I
a
think
lot more than
I think I have that on my phone.
10 gigs. Oh my goodness.
More than that on my phone.
There's little USB drives that have way more than that.
That's true. You have like some small drives of terabyte stuff now.
That's so true. But yeah, so guilty pleasures, man. All right. So behind you, and for those of you who are listening, I have a vinyl collection. That's kind of what I've started going back to.
Yeah, that's right.
And man, I have a little bit of everything there. And here's the way that I view it. If it's important enough to me, then I will try to find it in vinyl. And that's, of course, to say, I mean, it's not none of the newer stuff, of course, because some of the newer stuff you can't find on vinyl. But if you do find it on vinyl, it's way too expensive too to own it on vinyl. So I'd rather just listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music, whatever it may be. But man, it's all right. So some of the stuff that people would expect is like jazz, Bill Evans.
Okay.
Some Miles Davis stuff in there. A lot of jazz stuff. Coltrane.
You listen to standards. Yeah.
I have a lot of 80s music in there. 70s. A big Beatles fan, so I have a lot of Beatles stuff in there. Guilty stuff that you probably wouldn't expect is, man, I enjoy some of the very poppy stuff of the 80s. So I even have a little of John Lennon's son. I can't remember his name now. Oh my goodness, it's slipping my mind. Who had a hit in the 80s to Culture Club, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I mean, some of the stuff there where it's like, oh, do you really listen to that? To, man, I would say even like the Jonas Brothers now. I've been really digging their recent stuff. And that's, I think, I don't know if I kind of feel a little guilty about that, but Ryann Teaders is behind a lot of that stuff. And I think I didn't know that at first, but I discovered that, and it was kind of my own little reasoning of like, yeah, that's the reason why I like that music now so much.
Yeah.
But right, yeah, if you know who Ryann Teaders is, he's a big producer. He's lead singer for One Republic, and has worked with so many artists. Great songwriter. Anyway, and has a show now called Songland that I hugely recommend that everyone watch. If you're a musician, songwriter, producer, a singer, I mean, you gotta watch that show. It's on NBC, which is on Hulu too. But
that is a cool show.
And I say Hulu because, of course, nowadays, like, no one has, like, millennials that I talk to, no one has actual TV or antenna to capture, like, local TV stations. Everything's happening through Hulu now.
I think everyone's not even just that, but people are binge watching. They're not necessarily going prime time and it's on. I don't even, what time does it normally come on during the week?
It was on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
So
I don't know, like, when things are. I don't even know when things are on.
You remember having to line up and catch the show on Friday night because you knew, like, TGIF, it was going to start at 7:00, and if you were in front of your TV station, that's it. You missed it.
Remember must see TV.
Must see TV. Yep.
So even now, I don't think there's people do DVRs anymore. I think everything is either Hulu or Netflix.
The cloud, man. That cloud
exactly. You can watch it when you want. So Songland is something you need to check out. Make sure you do.
For sure.
So when you listen to, like, new songs, new stuff, let's say Jonas Brothers, for instance, do you go out and try to find it on vinyl also? Or do you just
not
download?
That stuff. Yeah, not the modern stuff. If it's like in the 90s, Whitney Houston, Shaka Khan, I'm out there getting that stuff. Anything I want to say prior to the 2000s, I'm trying to find on vinyl. And a lot of that was because, if you think about it, most of those recordings took place in an analog format. So they were being recorded on tape. They were being recorded on reel.
ADATs or reels.
Yeah. And everything now is digital. So I kind of figured that, if anything, Spotify might be the best way to listen to it. But everyone's their own judge in that, and but there is a certain thing about vinyl. Anyway, I don't want to jump into the vinyl. That's a whole other discussion too.
That's actually a good. That's right. It's a good discussion at the end.
Yeah, it was being recorded on reel to reel, and there's something about that sound too. Creating a big sound in that, and why so many artists and bands will even export to that tape to kind of fatten up their sound a little bit, and then import that back into digital to master it, and go about it that way. So
yeah, I'm looking behind me, and I see your vinyl collection. It's a pretty good one. What are your really proud ones you really like?
Man, I want to say the Beatles.
Okay.
Some of the Beatles stuff. I really dig having a copy of that Revolver album, and this is all stuff that I try to find, not like reissues, none of the new stuff that has been reprinted again in like the 2000s, but everything has been like the first press, US press.
Okay.
I mean, for Beatles stuff, obviously they had first press in UK version, first press in US version. So I try to find those versions. Okay. And sometimes you get lucky and you get them for a few bucks, and sometimes you have to shell out a little bit more.
How often are you vinyl shopping?
Not that often anymore. I try not to, but I would say at least once a month now. I'm out there trying to see what I could discover, find. I think a lot of it's the treasure hunting and aspect of finding a diamond in the rough of all these other vinyls that are scratched up, that are worth nothing pretty much, and just discovering that one gem in the middle of that pack.
I'm finding that a lot of people are really making a habit of building their vinyl collection now. It's coming back.
It is. It's and there's a lot to vinyl. Aside from the sound, if you're gonna play it back, I quickly discovered that it can become pretty expensive too, with styluses and cartridges and turntables and preamps or phono amps to go along with these turntables, and oh man, the list goes on and on.
Do you think that maybe an artist who's recording now would have any value in recording on vinyl?
All right, so
at all?
I do have some modern ones.
Okay.
And the modern ones that I have are like Coldplay. I love Coldplay.
Okay.
And I do have a couple of those. I have Adele, just because I feel that Adele, man, like I feel it. She could have easily been born into the 80s, into that analog, because of her style, where it's very acoustic driven. She doesn't have a lot of overproduced, processed sounds. So it's just, some great pianos, drums. She's another, artist that's highly piano driven. And I just feel that vinyl suits her well. Along with, and here's a guilty pleasures. I do have Stranger Things on vinyl, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be perfect to have on vinyl because of the sound of the 80s.
You found that sound on vinyl?
So of course.
They released it on vinyl?
Any of the new soundtracks they have on vinyl too. So Stranger Things, the first season, I ended up picking that up on vinyl. It's a 2 vinyl little set.
Well, that's a smart idea. That's a great marketing idea. Because, when you watch that show, that just takes me back anyway. I'm pausing part of the show going, I remember that. Oh, look at the background. And then if they came out everything on vinyl, that just sends it all over.
Yeah, and all the sounds come from 80s synths.
Right.
So it was made for vinyl. So, why not have it on vinyl?
Why not have it on vinyl? Their soundtrack on vinyl. Wow.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of those good ones to have.
Man. So how long have you been, let's say, maybe just collecting music? I've started collecting music myself when I was just a kid, and I would spend money on cassette tapes. I can't tell you how many cassette tapes I went through. I had just so many. If you went to my car, and this is a funny thing. So in my car, I had a Volkswagen Beetle, 76 Super Beetle, by the time I moved to Arizona. And I'm in my 20s, late 20s. When I sold that Beetle in 10 years, I had to go through and get like several garbage bags, because I had tons of these cassette tapes just everywhere, just collecting. I collected so much music on cassettes. So I'm very happy about the digital revolution for one, because I've got just so much music that I just listen to all the time.
Yeah, I think that the digital world is great. I do have quite a bit of CDs.
I do too.
Not many tapes, because I want to say that I didn't have money till the CD era came out, so I didn't have money to buy tapes. I did have tapes, but I want to say the few tapes that cassettes that I did buy, I lost along the way because I was probably still pretty small. But once the CD revolution took place, then that's when I started buying, and I had money, and I waited for Tuesdays, because that was release day, that was drop day at Sam Goody or at Circuit City or all these other places. So, man, I've probably spent a pretty penny on music.
Spent so much money on those things.
And here's the crazy thing that I think about, because when I've bought these vinyls. And obviously, I haven't bought music for, aside from iTunes, hard copies, I don't buy very often, except for now vinyls. You think about the factor that all this stuff will outlive you. So if you're going to collect, you have to keep in mind that you are collecting for someone else to take over along down the road.
Sure.
And I want... So now, having daughters, I think, okay, well, one of them will inherit these vinyls or CDs and what I have.
Right.
And once again, that makes you remember that how mortal we are and how our existence is,
And if you think about it, the digital world is going to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be more immortal, I think, than the CD world would be. Because the CD will eventually decay. Cassettes are the worst. Your digital imprint's going to be there for the rest of...
My paranoid self, though, honestly speaking, thinks that having a tangible copy of something is always better than having something electronically in the clouds or digital in the clouds.
I dig it.
I feel like I want to have something tangible in my hands in case something were to happen with a cloud and everything goes down. Kind of like how the world goes crazy when Instagram or Facebook goes down for a few hours, and it's like, I don't know what to do myself. Like, what am I supposed to do? I feel like the paranoid self thinks like I'd rather have a tangible copy because I could grab my little Discman player, CD player, and throw on a CD and put on some headphones and listen to it without anyone else having an impact into that. So anyway, that's just my paranoid self.
Do you have like a background of like all of your work or something, like on a hard drive somewhere?
Yeah, I definitely have backups on hard drives. I back up every computer. I have to, because once again, I always think like, what if it goes down and this computer just dies on me and I can't even retrieve the hard drive on this computer. I need to have it on an external, backup drive.
I think that's smart.
So
I want to talk now about your influence. All right, so let's talk about the musical influences that you use now for your track work on recording. Do you have a particular composer that you like to fall back on? Are there particular sound styles that you like to listen to as you're composing? What are your influences when you're creating a track?
Creating a track, I think, man, just a ton of things kind of play a part into it. Influences and things I look for inspiration to would be just other works within that field. So if I'm trying to do a TV track or maybe an advertisement or some kind of music bed, depending on what I'm trying to achieve, I will go out and listen to something that's already been done, some great work that's maybe with a company that's similar to that company I'm working with. In the case of orchestral, I mean, obviously you have some of the giants of Hans Zimmer and John Williams and Danny Elfman and all those that you kind of look toward and look to for inspiration as far as how they write stuff and how they approach it. And I mean, it varies. So, I mean, even pop artists nowadays, I mean, that's what you tend to hear a lot of when you hear a music bed as well. You hear these sound alikes, so you want to listen to a lot of these artists that are out there right now and copy some of the sounds, synths, drums, stuff that you hear in their recordings.
Danny Elfman came from Oingo Boingo, right?
Yeah.
So I think of him a lot because he was a pop player, a pop musician. Now he's one of the top composers for a lot of music, a lot of movies and stuff. That's pretty cool. So you're orchestrally, I heard you mention John Williams as well, and those are folks I love to listen to because I think that they know how to tell stories really well through their music. So you'll just really, it sounds like that when you have a particular thing you're going for, you listen to other artists in that same genre, basically.
Right. Okay. You're looking to see and hear other great works that have been done prior. And I mean, that's really what we are, right? And I remember in music history class, we had to memorize composers, and one of the attributes to these composers, we had to memorize their influences, where they got their style.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
we had to put these note cards, I remember, and say, you know, like, they were influenced by so and so that came before them, and that's really who we are now, right? We're
True.
a bunch of musicians that have been influenced by other people, and we create our own sound through that, through listening to other people, getting to spend time with other people, and you kind of put them into a blender and you create your own drink, including your own sauce in there, you know, as well. So, I mean, that's the approach. I think that's how you gain a lot of the inspiration and creativity, you know, when you're trying to copy something. And why not copy some of the greats and some of their great works?
right. All right, this is a good spot. We'll stop to take a quick advertisement break. Hi there, I'm Dan Young, co-founder of Sonic Productions, your music production company. We partner with businesses to help you deliver your best message, professionally, elegantly, and with the power to capture your audience. Our goal is to serve you as you seek to grow your brand, whether you use Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or other mediums like podcasting or television. We'll work with you to custom tailor a song to fit your campaign, or you can visit our music licensing business, Sonica, to choose from over 100 original songs ready for licensing. Voiceover narration is also available. So when it's time to seriously consider growing your business, consider Sonic Productions to stand out. Sonic Productions. Our music, your story. Visit us at www.sonicproductions.biz to contact our team and to learn more. One of the things I like about you as a composer and our other artists we have in our team is that you guys are not just beat makers. Because a lot of times I'll hear, a lot of the pop music, it's just you hear beats, right? And so people are just stuck on making a beat rather than making something that's musical, something that's really, that can tell and carry a story. And I think you really embody that it's not just a rhythm you're looking for, but you're looking to tell a story with this.
Thanks.
And so I hear that a lot in the compositions you make.
Yeah, and not that beats aren't important. I think
True.
it has to move you. It has to definitely get
This is true.
Your body moving, capture you, and engage the listener through a beat, through melodic line, through whatever it may be. It has to move you in some sort of way. So yeah, I appreciate it. But yes, I mean, the goal is to not only create a beat, but also an experience. I mean, for you to engage and to lock in, not only through the beat, but also through the feel and through the melodic line and so many other elements of the song, that will really capture what you're trying to go for.
What would you recommend for someone who's very new to music creation if they want to have a creative process? Is there like a daily habit that you go through or a particular process you start when you're in your creative process?
I think looking back, one of the best answers for that is to create and produce songs, as many songs as possible, because every time that you do something, you learn something. So the more you do it, the more you will gain knowledge, because I feel that every project, every song that I create, there's something different than the previous one. And sometimes there's something new that leads me to research something, a certain sound, a certain beat, a certain, I guess, era or sound alike, something that I'm trying to replicate, and whether it be through synth work or just knowing an orchestra, knowing the line or the limits where a flute player can play,
Right.
or where a violin cuts off, so that you're not creating something that. But yeah, so every time that
That's
you do
impossible.
it, right? Exactly. I mean, you can't have a violin playing in the lower register. That's not
Right.
naturally what a violin does. So, anyway, so every song that you cut or that you make will teach you something, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. I mean, it's just like anything else. You want to become a good basketball player, especially a free throw shooter. You have to shoot free throws.
Right,
So
right.
the more you do it, the better you'll become, especially if along the way you're learning the adjustments and also working and seeing like, okay, I'm still not doing this right. I need to maybe move my wrists a little bit better. And the same thing applies for music. I think every time I do one, I realize, okay, I should be doing this better. I can do this better. I can maybe EQ this better. I could, and all that helps you along the way. So the more you do it, I think that's the best advice is just do it. Like, get out there and produce some songs, create some stuff, and get experience from that.
The sound designer Nick Spann on our team,
Yes.
we had an interview a few weeks ago, and I had asked him a question because he grew up, his first instrument was drums, and from drums he really gained an understanding of beats and understanding rhythm. Then he started adding chords and chord structure to his work, and it's a really good blend of how things met through. Your primary instrument was, you said guitar. I think I remember when we spoke.
Yeah, that was the first one.
The first
I learned.
one,
Yep.
But then it went to piano.
Yeah.
If you had someone who was maybe trying to get started in this, is there a particular way you would recommend they introduce themselves, like maybe taking piano lessons, or do they start working with DAWs first and other types of things to get oriented? Is there a way you would recommend?
I think the music world and the production game has changed so much with software, because you really don't have to know how to play an instrument because of MIDI now.
Right.
So you could draw squares, rectangles, whatever you want to call them, these MIDI notes in without ever playing a keyboard, and create some good music. And once again, you don't have to know an instrument. Does knowing an instrument help you? Yes, it does. It helps you a ton, especially when you have to cater to sound alikes, and when you're trying to create something and play chord structures and inversions and all that sorts of stuff. It does help a ton. Keyboard is obviously or piano is such a staple instrument. I mean, for every musician. That's why you have the likes of like John Mayer, who could play piano. Miles Davis played piano.
Right.
It's just a ton of people that will eventually come back to the piano because it's visual. I mean, visually, it's very clear. You could see stuff very clear on it. You see these 12 notes repeat every, just an octave up every time. So it does help. I mean, piano would be a great place to start from. But once again, do you need to know piano? No. There's people doing it, just drawing in MIDI notes and creating hits, hit after hit. So
that's true. Yeah, I guess so. That's
but
true.
it does help. I mean, in a big way, if you can play an instrument.
Doesn't that really? I mean, kind of going back to the education discussion, doesn't that make you wonder what's happening or what could happen with the education of music moving forward?
Oh yeah.
I mean, because as a young person, if you know that, hey man, I can just go onto this and draw some squares out, repeat that beat, push a button, repeat the beat again, maybe add some bass line. There's not really the need to educate myself musically as there had been in the past.
Right. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, no one, if you're talented, you're talented, and no one's going to ask you
This is true.
for a degree.
Where did you
music.
go to school?
Yeah. No one's going to say, hey, I'd love you to be part of our band and tour the world, but I'd see that degree first.
Right, exactly. It's true.
Music is one of those things where if you get a degree, it's because you're going to get into the educational field, and the school system is going to require for you to have a degree because they want you to be certified in certain areas. But man, you just have to have the talent, know the knowledge to be able to play. I mean, man, if you could play, you could play.
Right.
There's no getting
That's
around
true.
that, whether it be a guitar, drums,
Right.
bass, keys, whatever it may be.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think the digital world has definitely changed the game in music education because, once again, and that's a dangerous thing too, because we live in a world where instant gratification is huge, and that's why people give up on lessons, because
That's interesting.
especially in the classical route, for classical guitar, classical piano, you have to wait quite a bit of time before you see the results that you get.
That's true.
The big results.
Right.
And nowadays it's like instant gratification. So I want to take one lesson and be able to play a song already.
Right.
And if I don't have the knowledge to play a song, then you're not doing it right, and I need to move to
Right.
someone else.
Wow.
Or I just give up on it because it's going to take too long.
Right.
But as we know, anything that really matters and that is worthwhile will take time.
Very
It's
true.
just the way it is. You can't start a diet one day and the next and expect, to lose 30 pounds by the next day. Or the same thing, lifting weights. You can't be, have shredded abs, in a week after, having ate McDonald's for the past
Right.
10 years.
Right,
That's
right.
not going to work out that way.
Right.
So yeah, it's a tough thing because
Yeah.
it's been helpful, and just like anything in technology, any advancement, it helps and it hurts at the same time if you're not careful with it.
Very good. Yeah, someone used to tell me you can't get 21 years of experience without being in it for 21 years.
Yeah,
There's just no way you can get around that.
yeah, and that's what people are paying for. I mean, so and once again, you see it over and over on all these statements and quotes. When you do work for people, they want the cheapest thing because, first of all, no one wants to pay a lot of money for production work. And if so, they're saying, well, how much are you charging an hour?
Right.
And that's a lot for an hour. But you're
Right.
not paying me for the hour of my time. You're paying me for the years of experiences in education
Right.
and the time
Right.
that I've spent outside learning, all those years,
Right.
to get to the point where I could do it now within an hour.
There's a quote that I saw several months ago, and I love it. I have it pasted on my workstation. I am paid for my value, not for my time.
Right.
And
right.
I think that's where you're going with that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so take me through the type of gear that you're using now for your recording sessions. Of course, you got your keyboard, a workstation, the digital audio workstation. What other kinds of gear, if you kind of go around the room, that you're normally using?
Okay, so first of all, a lot of this stuff now is happening in box kind of a thing, all in the computer, pretty much through plugins, the digital audio workstation, the DAW, and pretty much all the samples and sound packs and libraries that are contained within that DAW. I do have some outboard gear as well, but so just quick list. So I use an iMac for my computer. I have a complete control keyboard that helps navigate through a lot of stuff, especially native instrument stuff and any of the companies that go through them as well. Have some Yamaha HSM10s, and then I use an Apogee Element for my interface.
Okay.
And then I do have a Neumann TLM 103 microphone
Okay.
for recording vocals, stuff like that. And then I have an Universal Audio 710 for preamp and other outboard gears that go along with it as well. But being a keyboard player, I primarily collect keyboards. I do have some guitars, Taylor guitar, acoustic guitar, and electric guitar. But I have a Hammond in my. It's actually an A series Hammond in my studio. Have a Moog, little
Nice.
fatty.
Yep, I see it.
In my studio, I have a Juno 106 in my studio, and then some more of the 90s kind of stuff as far as Yamaha NS or the S90 and the Motif ES6 and some other keyboards that I kind of have in the form of modules that are some older school 80s and 90s stuff. But that's primarily like, I guess, hardware stuff that I have.
So hardware wise, as I look around your studio, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 different keyboards. Do you as you're creating, do you end up like switching from one keyboard to another just to make something feel right, or the modules good enough to where you can use 1 or 2 keyboards as a workstation and make it work?
To be honest with you, a lot of these keyboards are sometimes called upon for production work, not an everyday thing.
Right.
It's more of looking for certain sound. Everything, like I said, is most of these days is coming from the inbox for me, unless I'm seeking or looking for a certain sound,
Right.
an organ or a certain Moog sound or Juno sound, whatever it may be. So yeah, but MIDI wise, it makes it very easy to connect. I mean, I could connect my 1980s Juno 106 through MIDI
Right.
To my DAW and be able to record straight into it and change any MIDI notes that I mess up on and line those up, which makes it pretty nice. So yeah, definitely his digital electronic side has changed the game with all the advancements.
Especially when we're talking about younger players that are just getting started, the digital revolutions really help them to be able to just create without a ton of hardware.
Yes. Yeah,
without
I
having to
wouldn't.
go and
I
get a ton of
definitely wouldn't
hardware.
make it in the old days where it was, you had to know your stuff. It was, one take. You're wasting our time and money if you didn't come into the studio prepared.
Right.
And that's why so many people can do it now, because of that element where it's like, hey, if you mess up, it's okay. You could fix it, through MIDI notes, or you could, fix it down the line. And you could have up to 50 takes if you want and not cost you a thing except time. As opposed to the old days where it's like, hey, you come in, you're wasting engineers' time, producers' time. You got to nail it.
I was telling somebody a story years ago when actually it was on one of my albums I did. I had to fly somebody in to do a guitar piece, and it was expensive to fly somebody in, obviously. But then you're having to tell your engineer to sound them and mic them a certain way, and then they go through 3 or 4 takes, and you're wasting tape at this point. We were doing ADATs, and it's all, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, time is money. Oh, you got to get it right. And nowadays you can just send somebody your digital audio workstation files, all of your files. They can be in the comfort of their own home, put something down, and then just email it back to you, and you're done.
Yep.
And then you can even pay them right there with your
Cash App.
with Cash App or Apple
Boom.
Pay, and done.
All happening through the web.
Right. And it can be done in minutes and save a whole lot of overhead and hardware.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing.
The way that we live now.
But I mean, hardware wise, I mean, it's you pull it in when you need it, call in the big guns, and because of course there is something about outboard gear that there's some great softwares out there right now, especially in the synth world, but capturing hardware sound like a Juno 106 is there's still a slight difference there, and still to the advantage of the hardware at this point.
So it's hard to model some
there is
to the hardware that's out
There's
there.
been some great modeling happening recently, sampling. I want to say that in every field, piano, strings, drums, man, there's been vast improvements.
Right.
Except for like electric guitar. Electric guitar is always like the sucky.
It sounds teeny. Whenever I hear like a modeled electric guitar, it sounds teeny to me.
What's hard to capture the actual strike of,
Good point. Yeah.
the scratching that happens sometimes, all that inflection work happening within the strings. It's just tough to capture.
So one of the instruments I play is an electronic wind instrument, an EWI.
Yeah.
I play a Yamaha WX5 is the one I have. I've had it for like 20 years. And one of the fun things to do is sometimes I'll call up a cello part and I'll model that. And I have to remember I can't play it like I would a saxophone. I have to think of how there would be swoop ups and swoop downs. And, people who might be familiar with the instrument, you have like a roller where you can bend a pitch and you can use your breath to swoop in and swoop down.
Yeah.
It's a whole different discipline that you have to work in.
Yeah. And by the way, if you haven't heard Dan play sax, he's a killer sax player. So that's one of the things you have to
Thank you, sir.
Do is listen to him play.
Better than some, not as good as others, but thank you. I appreciate that. This was good. Thank you very much for this. It's a good segment. We're able to really talk a whole lot about your techniques and music and what you use. So thanks, man.
Yeah, good work. Welcome.
You've been listening to the SONICast, where artists discuss their passion for creating music. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can find show notes in the descriptions, as well as information to hear more from our guest. You can also visit us at www.sonicproductions.biz to license music and shop for some cool merchandise. Sonic Productions, our music, your story.